What's up, guys? In this video I'm going to be going over what every single Focus ST owner needs to know and what you need to know before you buy one of these cars so that you have the best experience with them, just such as like maintenance, a few tips and tricks about like tuning them and modding them and stuff, and then also just longevity and protecting them from common issues and things like that. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of go through a list of stuff that I have prepared, things I've learned just with mine, and then also just common things that kind of have to do with every single ST, all the way from 2013 to 2018. So the thing I'm going to start with is getting a catch can. I'll take this engine cover off so you can see it a little bit better, but this is a catch can. If you're not familiar with what it does, it pretty much intercepts oil that is coming up from the crankcase into the intake, and it is part of like the PCV system. And then I also have one back here which is part of the CCV system, and on the Focus ST you don't really need to worry about this one here. I've never emptied that one, and I don't know, the bottom of the canister is just barely covered in oil, so hardly any oil will be caught through that one. So the main one that you want to worry about is the PCV side catch can, because this one will catch the most oil. I empty this one every 3,000 miles whenever I change my oil, and at every 3,000 miles, you can see how big this is. It's pretty much full all the way up to here. And what's really important about that is the Focus ST is direct injected, so this kind of ties into the rest of it too, is that with these direct injection engines, it doesn't spray, the fuel onto the valves, and your valves can get gunked up and dirty, and that can lead to other issues such as LSPI, which is another thing I will talk about in this video. But right now we're going to stick with the catch cans and explaining all of that. And the valves will get dirty because the oil will go through the intake and then end up on the valves, and it'll kind of get gunked up. I think I have some pictures of it if I can add that into this video now, but I've had my valves walnut blasted, which is where they take off the intake manifold here and clean your valves with little shavings of walnuts to get them back in shiny and polished to factory condition, so they don't have that gunk and carbon buildup on them anymore, which can lead to issues. This mainly is a longevity thing for your Focus ST. It'll make it a lot more reliable, so you definitely want to invest in a catch can. Probably that is the first thing I would do as soon as you buy one of these. This is the Add W1 kit. It's a great kit with a solid mount, and you can also get different colors here to customize it for whatever theme you're going with your car. And then it also has a dipstick here, so you can check the level of that. But you definitely want to invest in a catch can, because that will protect your engine and keep it a lot cleaner. And my car, I had the valves walnut blasted at around like 85,000 miles, I think. And that's a little bit, it's probably more on the early side. But if you have a Focus ST with more than that, more than 85,000 miles, and it's never had a catch can on it, I would definitely think about having the valves walnut blasted, because it makes the car run a lot smoother and also helps with longevity. And then put a catch can on it, and that should help keep the valves a lot cleaner. So now back to what I mentioned, LSPI, which stands for low speed pre-ignition. That is how you can easily blow your motor with this 2.0 EcoBoost. And obviously keeping the valves clean will also help with that, because it will kind of help with pre-detonation with anything getting in the cylinder. But the main thing you want to stay away from in these cars is flooring it in low RPM in 5th and 6th gear. So if you're in 5th or 6th gear and you're below 3,000 RPM, you do not want to go over 4 pounds of boost flooring it or getting on the gas. Always downshift at least into 4th. Like when I'm on the highway, I'll downshift into 4th to accelerate, or if it's at higher speed, you can in 5th. But you don't want to floor it and be getting on the gas under 3,000 RPM if you're in 5th and 6th gear, because that can cause pre-ignition in the cylinder, which basically means that it ignites before it's supposed to, and that is how you can damage the ring lands on your pistons, and that's a really common way for these motors to go. So just stay away from that. Get a catch can, keep your valves clean, and then also do not floor it under 3,000 RPM in 5th or 6th gear, and that will avoid that issue. And then two of the more important service interval type things for changing your oil and the spark plugs. These cars eat up spark plugs. You definitely want to stay on top of that. My Lexus LS400 here has 427,000 miles on the original engine and transmission. So if you want your Focus ST to even get close to half of that, you're going to want to stay on top of the spark plugs. Actually, when I bought this car, it had the original spark plugs in it from 1995, which is crazy. They were Denso spark plugs, and I swapped them out, and they weren't even bad yet. It ended up being the plug wires that were bad. So if you're used to a car like that where you don't replace the spark plugs very often, you definitely need to stay on top of that for a Focus ST. I change mine every 10,000 miles. Some people say every year. I just stick to every 10,000 miles because I kind of go for my service intervals just by how many miles. And you also want to check the gap on them if your car starts running bad, if you start having misfires or starts pulling timing. If you have an access port, I guess if you're new to these cars, you might not know what that is. That's pretty much the most common way to get these tuned, is a cob access port, and you can have gauges on there, which I'll go ahead and start the car, or I'll just turn it on so you can see once if this thing will turn on. But you want to have on there some ignition correction. I just have it for cylinder 1 because I like to have my other gauges, other gauge spots filled up with other stuff. The car's not on right now, so these numbers won't be accurate, but you can see I have ignition correction there, and you can also get misfire count if you want to be able to count the misfires on the car, which it is a direct injected car, so these cars will misfire at idle. If you hear it misfiring or see that on your access port, don't worry about it unless you have a check engine light. A check engine light is usually what you want to worry about with a misfire with this car, and then kind of diagnose it from there. But the plug gap on these cars, like my car is tuned, so it has step colder spark plugs, which your tuner will tell you about. I run the NGK 6510, I believe, and they're gapped at 0.026. And I definitely have adjusted the gap multiple times because it'll start misfiring or pulling timing, and a lot of the times you can fix that just with checking the gap on your plugs and staying on top of that, and then also replacing them every 10,000 miles, and that'll keep your car running smooth. And you also don't want I've also seen some people ruin their entire engine by the little piece on the end of the spark plug breaking off and going into their engine, and then that just eats stuff up. So stay on top of spark plugs every 10,000 miles, and check your gap if you have issues with how the car is running, and that'll take care of that issue. And also that does play a little bit of a factor in LSPI. You don't want to have the gap too big for it to ignite easier, but also if like just kind of understanding spark plugs, if like the I guess the arc, what you call it, connects across. But your tuner will give you a recommended range for that based on how your car is getting tuned. I run my car on E30, which is 30% E85 with pump gas, and that is a lot safer for these motors, and you also make quite a bit more power on it. So if you plan on getting your car tuned and doing modifications, you will definitely want to look into E30 if that's something you can get near you. But this video is not really more performance based, it's just kind of the basic things you need to know. So I will make a video on that in the future if you guys want it, on just kind of the basic performance stuff and a guide to tuning your Focus ST. So beyond spark plugs, I change my oil every 3,000 miles. That's just kind of obvious. You got to do that on any car. But I stick to 3,000 miles on this car because it's a good interval to stay on top of it, because it is tuned, and this car goes through a lot more abuse than just like a stock base model Focus would. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. Some people who leave these cars stock do them every 10,000 miles. It's kind of up to you, but I recommend every 3,000 miles, like especially if your car is modified and tuned. The next maintenance thing you want to be aware of is the trans fluid, and Ford doesn't recommend doing this until 150,000 miles. But I do not think it would hurt to do it before that. I changed the transmission fluid on my car like 68,000 miles because my third gear had grinded a little bit, and I was just like, it wouldn't hurt not to just go ahead and change it. And the car actually did shift quite a bit smoother after that, and I also want to stay on top of that because I believe my third gear synchro is going out, so I wanted to help that as much as possible. My car's at like 87 or 88,000 miles now, I believe. But the transmission fluid, just kind of an interval that you choose, but it is something to be aware of. A lot of people say do it at 100K. I did it way earlier and I thought it helped. But the key to these cars is maintenance, because they can be really reliable if you take care of them. I've seen one on Facebook that has over 400,000 miles, and I believe they're on original everything except it's their second clutch. But if you take care of these cars and stay on top of the maintenance, they can last a long time. I haven't had too many issues with mine, so that's just another thing to be aware of. And one of the common issues / recalls on these cars is the purge valve. And the purge valve is this right here. It goes all the way down and then plugs in down there. And then you can see it connects there. And this basically just ventilates the fuel pressure out of your gas tank. It's the purge valve. So I guess it just kind of lets out those gases. And if this goes bad, in a worst case scenario, which doesn't happen often, it can cause your fuel tank to deform and kind of like suck in or get bigger and have like dents in it basically. And that can lead to, I wouldn't say explosions because I've never heard of it, but Ford did recall all of the cars with this issue because it can just lead to worse things than just the purge valve being bad. And if you take it to Ford, they will replace it with the same part and it is going to go bad again. But if you haven't done the recall, the previous owner of my car already did the recall and it went bad again, so I couldn't even go back to the dealer. But I didn't want to take it to the dealer because the dealer around me sucks anyways. So I bought one myself, and I originally ordered the wrong one. And actually, the way you permanently solve this problem, it's on the forum if you look it up, but you get like a Focus RS purge valve, and you cut it and kind of splice it together yourself, and it replaces the actual valve part of it that goes bad, and then you just kind of have to build it and put it together yourself. And I think it actually ends up being cheaper than buying the part from Ford. But I found one cheap on Rock Auto, and it was the best price I found, and I ordered it and just put it in, and it did help my car. And the symptoms of this going bad is going to be an uneven idle, so your idle's kind of going to jump up and down as your car is just sitting there. Or it can also have trouble starting, or also just die on the highway, which that's when it gets really bad. But just the main symptom of it is your idle being uneven. And if you just fix this, it should fix that for you. And that's a very common thing to do. Pretty much every Focus ST owner is going to come across it at some point. So that's pretty much it for this video. That's all I could really think of that I had on my list. That is kind of the main things every Focus ST owner needs to know, other than just basic generic car stuff. But if anyone can think of anything else, leave it down in the comments, and maybe I can make a second part to this video, or also just add it into the comments. But I think that pretty much covers just kind of the basic stuff that comes before, like modification and tuning and all of that for these cars. So be sure to leave a like and comment and follow me on Instagram at Nickjoenap, and I will see you in the next video.